Thank you so much for the introductions, and thank you everybody for joining the call today. Before we deep dive into these discussion points for today, let's first discuss what really mid-market enterprises really are. The title of this webinar is Mid-Market Digital Transformation, Insights and Outlook for 2025. So let's discuss what this mid-market enterprises, how do we define it? So any organization which is with a revenue range of $1 to $5 billion is what we call mid-market organizations. And the reason we are doing this focused analysis on the mid-market organizations is because we are seeing a very distinct pattern of digital adoption. The drivers for their tech requirements or the expectations that they have from their partner ecosystem, all of them meaningfully different from their larger peers. That's the reason we are doing a deep dive analysis on the mid-market enterprises. And what we'll be doing today in this session is basically threefold, 3 points that we'll be discussing. The first is at an overall level, the business outlook and how we see these organizations perform in the market. The second is what are they investing in and why? What kind of digital priorities do they have and what do they want to achieve out of it? And last but not the least, how are they investing in all of those? What are they, who are they working with, and what do they expect from those partners? So with that, let's deep dive into the first theme about the market outlook. So I'd like to ask that as a question to Sandeep. Sandeep, you've been tracking this market for quite some time. So let's address this first part of how do these mid-market organizations differ from their larger peers? What has been the growth pattern? How are they investing, and why do they invest in digital?
Thank you for that question, Alisha. So to address the overall, sort of business sentiment for mid-market enterprises and how it differs from large enterprises, let's start by looking at one of the most telling trends that we've observed recently, and that's around revenue growth. So what we have seen is that mid-market enterprises have demonstrated a remarkable resilience with their revenue growth, sort of consistently outpacing that of some of the larger enterprises over the past 2 years. And this trend is especially significant when we consider all of the different challenges that businesses have faced post-COVID, including the massive economic volatility and the supply chain disruptions that they've faced. And and to go even further, right, the might of the middle market is all the more impressive when you consider the many factors that are not necessarily in its favor. So mid-market enterprises, despite being major employers, face talent challenges much more acutely than larger businesses, for instance, and especially some of the ones that lack brand awareness. And because they typically have fewer resources to dedicate to recruiting, they must be much more innovative and effective in their efforts to attract and retain qualified talent, right? And in addition, there are also multiple public policy and regulations which can be much more limiting for mid-sized organizations, presenting additional obstacles to overcome. So while many of these challenges are somewhat formidable, there is an upside to these challenges as well. And that is the fact that mid-market enterprises often need to selectively invest their resources wisely, which is what drives much better innovation and ROI. And in fact, this lack of resources translates into greater efficiencies, more nimbleness, and increased responsiveness. And all of this serves mid-market enterprises well and has contributed to the success of this segment, as you can see on the chart on this slide. Yeah, so now the other important thing to note, and which is something that you were also hinting at, Alisha, is that the growth journey for mid-market enterprises will be quite different from that of their larger counterparts. So now if you look at the slide on display, this is an insight that comes from our 2024 key issue surveys, where we sort of gathered data directly from the top mid-market as well as the large enterprises to understand what they considered to be the most impactful levers were for their growth in 2024. And what we found was that both mid-market and large enterprises have widely varying opinions on what it is they consider to be important for them in order to achieve that growth, right? And to go a bit deeper into the mid-market perspective, first, a large number of senior level executives at mid-market enterprises considered forming strategic alliances as one of the most important parameters for their growth, as it allows them to gain the scale and expertise needed to compete without some of the larger investments that a bigger firm can afford. And these alliances also enable mid-market enterprises to enter some of the newer markets out there and kind of achieve operational efficiencies that might be otherwise out of reach. And apart from that, the other thing that also came out of our analysis was that mid market enterprises are heavily focused on trying to differentiate themselves from in the market. So, in a sort of crowded marketplace, standing out by offering specialized, high quality products or services becomes extremely crucial. So, and this kind of differentiation is what allows mid market firms to effectively compete not only with other mid-sized enterprises, but also with larger enterprises that may have broader reach but less flexibility in adapting to some of the more niche market needs out there. Now, in contrast to all of this, if you look at large enterprises, they are much more likely to focus on global expansion and talent development as their primary growth strategies. So they have the resources to enter and dominate some of the newer markets out there, and they can kind of invest heavily in recruiting and retaining top tier talent, which may not be the case for mid-market enterprises, which is why the priorities are sort of different as well. And this kind of difference in how mid and large sized enterprises look at their growth strategies kind of underscores the need to sort of have a differentiated approach when it comes to growth, right? So while large enterprises leverage their resources for broader scale growth and talent acquisition, mid-market firms will find their edge in strategic partnerships and by clearly differentiating their offerings in the marketplace. And understanding these distinct strategies will help many of you align your efforts with the unique strengths and opportunities you have as you plan for the year ahead. So yeah, back to you, Alisha.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense indeed, because ultimately, if they can't compete on scale with the larger peers, they need to differentiate to be able to attract the right kind of customers as well as the talent. And one of the ways to do that is through these alliances and partnerships. So my next question is to you, Parul. Let's find out some more, deep insights into how do some of these patterns of investments and adoption of technology differ across different industries, or the drivers for investments. How do they differ? What exactly are the different industries within the mid market doing differently?
So that's a very pertinent question when we talk about the mid market. And one thing that our research indicates is that the focus on innovation and growth varies significantly across different industries. But before I jump to industries, I want to highlight that mid-market enterprises in general have a very high focus on innovation and growth. And there are multiple reasons behind that. First is, our analysis shows that typically the mid-market enterprises have a higher net profit margin as compared to the large enterprises, which is around 16 to 19%, as compared to 8 to 11% of the large enterprises, which gives them that leeway to invest more in innovation and growth. Secondly, a lot of unicorn startups and smaller mid-market enterprises, they have involvement of private equity, which kind of instills a growth-focused mindset in them. And finally, like Sandeep was talking about the growth numbers for 2024, mid-market enterprises have been resistant and resilient to market fluctuations as compared to their larger counterparts. So this gives a very good, this enables the mid-market to invest a lot in innovation and growth. Having said that, we have noticed that this innovation and growth is more on the software and platforms, high tech and energy and resources industries, wherein there is an imperative to invest in new technology and prioritize transformation. On the other hand, if we look at industries like health, communications, and media, so for example, in health, there are a lot of regulations. And the mid-market enterprises, they don't have that kind of resources like some of the large healthcare providers have. So they have to be competitive and invest a lot in optimizing their operations. So their focus moves towards cost and optimization. So in a nutshell, what we are seeing is that the mid-market enterprises, apart from investing in cost and optimization, they will focus a lot in innovation and growth, thereby driving their revenue even higher. And this brings us to our next projection. So what we observed is for 2024, the mid-market was growing at double digits. And our research suggests that in 2025 also this momentum is going to persist. The focus on innovation and targeted investments in key growth areas by mid-markets is going to continue in 2025 as well. But this is what our research says. Let's also hear from the audience that is around here. What is their prospect around the outlook in 2025 for the mid-market 2020? So this is the time for a poll. Alisha, what do you think about this?
Yeah. So you for the audience here, you'll all see this question. How optimistic are you about the growth prospects in 2025 vis-a-vis 2024? I think year 2024, enterprises entered this year with a lot of cautious optimism, right? They wanted to do a lot of things, but they didn't have all the resources, elections coming up, geopolitical not stable geopolitical scenarios. So there was a lot of caution. However, they were still optimistic about it. I believe the year 2025 is going to be a much more decisive year for the organizations in a positive manner. So I believe a large number of organizations are going to be more optimistic as compared to what we saw in 2024. That's the projection that we have. But let's see what the poll here says and what the audience here believe their customers or they themselves, those who are from the enterprise side and those who are serving the enterprises, how do they see the market? So we'll stop the poll responses in the next 5 seconds. So let's publish the results. So we've got some good responses. We see almost 64% of respondents say that they are moderately optimistic. They anticipate steady growth and stability, which is likely in continuity in accordance with what you also said, Parul, that we expect the growth momentum to continue, and definitely a lot more exciting year for the next for the mid-market organizations. All right, so with that, let's move to the next section on where do they invest. The mid-market enterprises, they're of course investing in digital priority. They have digital investment priorities, but what are those priorities? What do they want to achieve out of it? And what kind of technologies are they investing in? Again, Sandeep, a question to you. What do these mid-market want to achieve from digital? What are you seeing as a pattern and how does it compare to the larger peers?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Alisha. Yeah, so when we look at the technology spending trends for 2024 for mid-market enterprises, one of the most significant trends we've observed is the substantial increase in technology spending among mid-market enterprises when compared to the large enterprises. So around 74% of mid-market enterprises are indicating an increase in technology spend in 2024 versus only 48% for the large enterprises, right? And this increased spending is also indicative of a broader recognition among the mid-market that technology is no longer just a cost center, but a critical driver of business growth and competitive advantage. In fact, if you look at the past 5 years, mid-market enterprises have primarily been building and expanding their digital foundations in cloud computing, cybersecurity, data analytics, business intelligence, and AI, right? And unlike a large enterprise, which may have the resources to invest in, cutting edge technologies across the board, mid-market enterprises are much more selective in their technology investments. And they tend to prioritize solutions that offer immediate tangible benefits that can be scaled as their business grows. So at an overall level, what we found was that in 2024, the key mantra amongst both mid and large enterprises was this idea of doing more with less. And you can see that reflected in their top business priorities as well, wherein most mid-market enterprises considered driving accelerated revenue growth as well as cost optimization as the top business priority going into 2024. In addition to this, mid-market enterprises have also placed a particular emphasis on improving their customer experience, with around 65% of them calling it out as a top business priority for 2024. Unlike larger enterprises where the customer experience side of things is much more standardized, you often see that with mid-market enterprises, every customer interaction is they consider every customer interaction as being able to significantly influence their reputation and success, right? And by sort of investing in technologies that enhance customer engagement and personalization, mid-market enterprises are trying to differentiate themselves and create value that resonates with their customer base. Yeah, so
Yeah.
This broadly represents how we see the spending. Alisha, back to you.
Yeah. And I think I can't agree more on this customer experience part, because ultimately each and every customer is extremely, extremely valuable, specifically for the mid-market enterprises, because they need to keep their customers loyal to themselves. So investing in experience is a lot more important and coming up as a key priority for the mid-market organizations. And I think what's also interesting is, while they serve their customers and they deliver great experience to the customers, they also expect the same from their partners. So whoever their partner is, they expect a great deal of experience and relationship building. And we'll come to that point in a couple of slides from now. But for now, let's go to the next section. But before that, again, a quick poll to everybody around where do you expect technology's positive impact across the value chain? So there are a lot of different areas. We talked about customer experience. That could be one. But apart from that, what are some of the other functions? And maybe that as well. What are some of the functions where you're seeing maximum investments for digital initiatives and for most positive impact across the value chain? You're getting some good number of responses here. All right, so we'll wait for another 10 seconds for everyone to respond. There are quite a few options out there: core operations, customer service, marketing, sales, people management, really investing in their internal talent, the procurement function, research and development, supply chain and logistics. All right. So we'll close the poll now and publish the results. So we've got quite a interesting results here. We've got a good spread. However, core operations is emerging as the key area where most of the audience here sees maximum investments from mid-market happening, or the respondents from mid-market organizations investing in core operations, which is great, followed closely by customer service, which we are also observing coming up as one of the key priorities for enterprises, becoming more and more important to maintain and to retain their existing clients and to build loyalty within them. And the third in line is the supply chain and logistics. Again, quite naturally, because of the dependency that a lot of these have, the lack of bargaining power that mid-market organizations have, plus the geopolitical situations because of which the supply chain seems to be getting disrupted on a very regular basis. It is becoming a lot more important to have visibility, to have data analytics, to understand about, to build more resilience in the supply chain and logistics function. That's another area where we are seeing massive investment. So, Sandeep, now back to you. What are the digital initiatives they're investing in? What kind of technologies are they leveraging to achieve the initiatives, to achieve the objectives you just talked about? And we ask the audience here across the value chain that they want to achieve. So what kind of technology do you see them investing in?
Yeah, Alisha. So, and on the poll, right? So as we sort of expected, most of you seem to have chosen areas around core operations and customer services. as the key areas for your investments. And this largely aligns with how we see the market as well, right? So while, like I was talking about before, while mid-market enterprises have largely spent the last 5 years building up their digital foundations with investments in things like cloud and data, today we are also increasingly seeing higher order objectives like customer experience come to the forefront. And in general, the trend we have seen among mid-market enterprises with regards to their future-focused digital spending has been very largely driven by this focus on customer experience. Now, to hone in on this point a bit further, so this slide shows you the key next generation technology capability investment priorities for mid-market enterprises in 2024. A significant proportion, I believe almost half of mid-market enterprises have cited UX and CX design as a top priority. And this emphasis is not surprising given the focus on customer experience that we've talked about before. And with regards to most of the mid-market enterprises that we spoke to, standing out in a competitive landscape often hinged on their ability to engage and retain customers through superior digital experiences, right? And they are primarily focused on creating user interfaces and customer journeys that are not only visually appealing but also functionally efficient, leading to higher customer satisfaction and more repeat business. On the other side of things, as you can see, cybersecurity has also taken center stage for investments, with about 33% of mid-market enterprises prioritizing it as a key area for investment. As the digital transformation initiatives amongst the mid-market accelerate, so do the risks associated with cyber threats. And mid-market enterprises see themselves as particularly vulnerable as they often face the same threats as larger enterprises, but with far fewer resources to combat them. So therefore, investing in robust cybersecurity measures also becomes very essential. Now, continuing on this theme of next generation digital investments, and if we can move to the next slide, uh, we will we would be hard pressed not to talk about generative AI and its impact as well. So let's also take a look at how mid market enterprises view generative AI. So in 2023, much like everyone else in the market, many mid-market enterprises began experimenting with Gen AI through POCs and pilot projects. And from a long-term perspective, most of the mid-market senior executives that we spoke to looked at Gen AI as an extremely important and critical opportunity area that could potentially be very beneficial for them to differentiate themselves in an intensely competitive market, right? And despite experiencing what we term as POC fatigue, wherein some of the excitement around Gen AI has not yet fully translated into widespread implementation, in general, we see that mid-market enterprises continue to actively experiment in the Gen AI space. And they sort of still see Gen AI as being a crucial lever, especially in the long term, in order to gain a competitive advantage. Now, one key area where Gen AI is making the most impact is, again, in terms of customer support. And as you will see, this is a recurring theme throughout this discussion on IT spending. And this is especially of relevance to mid-market enterprises. And we've seen quite a bit of traction and interest among mid-market enterprises with regards to leveraging Gen AI for enhancing their customer experience. And in fact, many of them have started to look to their service providers for their AI needs. And this is definitely a potential opportunity area for any service providers in the audience as well. So while large enterprises may have the luxury of building in-house AI capabilities, mid-market firms are much more likely to rely on external service providers for their AI needs. So in general, mid-market enterprises tend to focus on specific high-impact use cases that deliver immediate value with respect to Gen AI. Areas like customer support, marketing, process automation are largely the ones that we have seen, where there seems to be some proven track record of ROI and value. Now, on this slide that is over here, I also wanted to demonstrate with some specific examples around how mid-market enterprises are investing in Gen AI and highlight some of the use cases that are gaining traction in the market. So, for instance, if you look at the BFSI segment in particular, we again see a recurring theme of customer service enhancements like AI-powered chatbots and personalized account insights, right? So these use cases have gained traction because they've been proven to improve customer engagement and reduce operational costs, making them high impact investments with a clear ROI. And as you can see, quite a few of these customer service oriented use cases have already moved into production, which is reflective of the kind of effectiveness and the value that they bring in. So, for example, Fifth Third, which is a mid-sized bank based in the US, has its own AI-powered chatbot called Genie, which is a virtual assistant that customers can interact with for all their banking-related queries. Again, N26, which is another bank based in Europe, has this AI platform that can give out personalized account insights. Both of these use cases, we are seeing in production today, giving out a good ROI for the ones who've implemented them, right? And so these were just some of the key trends around how mid-market enterprises were looking at their digital investments. I'll hand it back to you, Alisha, so that we can look at some of the other things that we're seeing in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Gen AI, it's a very important board level conversation now, while the value still remains elusive in many cases. So, coming back to that point, we've been discussing around mid-market versus large enterprises. Parul, what do you have to say about this? How does really the transformation approach? We talked about why they are investing, where they are investing, which technologies they are investing, but the approach, the how part of it, how does that differ for mid-market enterprises vis-a-vis their larger peers?
So, Alisha, I think it's very important to understand the approach that the mid-market enterprises take for transformation. And what we notice is that it's very different from what the large enterprises do, right? So the mid-market enterprises, they have a very strong preference towards small micro transformations. And it helps them in three ways. Firstly, it helps them to manage the risk. Secondly, it helps them to manage the resources efficiently since they have low capital and low resources. And third, it also helps them to check the results of the transformation that they are doing, and then they can scale it up. And if we look at the data on the slide, so Sandeep mentioned about the key issues survey in which we talked to more than 200 enterprise leaders. And the result say that the mid-market enterprises, more than 63% of them, they prefer to engage in iterative micro transformations as compared to only 43% of larger enterprises. Now, what this also indicates is that the engagement contract size for mid-market is also smaller as compared to larger. And in fact, typically it's less than half of what the large enterprises engage with. Similarly, if I talk about the average ACV, it's around 1/3 of what the large enterprises engage with. So in a nutshell, if I want to summarize this, the approach towards transformation is taking it in bite size, doing micro transformations to achieve their goals. Having said that, it is important to understand that even if the approach to transformation is in bite size, their ambitions and vision towards their goal is comparable to what the large size providers are trying to do. So their ambitions are not smaller. On the other hand, the strategy that they have to achieve their ambition, it is highly inconsistent. So if we move to the next slide, what we notice is that more than 55% of the mid-market enterprise leaders describe their current IT strategy as inconsistent and constantly changing. And in fact, in 2024, 57% of the enterprise leaders said that a lack of clear strategic vision for advancement is one of their top challenges. So I think this is one of the biggest challenge that the mid-market enterprises are facing at this point of time, that they lack a clear focus in terms of defining their strategy. And there are multiple reasons behind this. Firstly, they focus a lot on their core operations, leaving little time and resources for thinking through their digital strategy. They have a very small leadership bench. So only 3 to 4 people are looking out for all the transformations. And again, as we have said multiple times, they have little resources and as compared to their larger counterparts. So a cocktail of this leads to a poor strategy, which leads to inconsistency in the execution. And this brings me to our projection for 2025. What we believe is that given these inconsistencies, the middle market will use and leverage a lot of external support like consulting services to define and execute their digital strategies. So the consulting providers will become very important coming to 2025 to help the middle market with their strategies. Alisha, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think a very important point that you made here, Parul, because ultimately it's on the onus of the partners of these enterprises to help them strategize well, to be able to get to those larger scale engagements. We get this question a lot of times from our clients that we are speaking to, say service provider clients that, hey, while the volume is good, the value isn't that good when it comes to mid-market because the same point that you said, they want to invest in smaller size engagements, bite-size engagements. They're not very margin lucrative, for example. Having said that, a lot of it we believe needs to be shaped up, and a lot of this is coming because of that lack of strategic vision that they have, and them, struggling with the various pressures that they are having from a top line growth to a bottom line cost optimization requirement and being pressured from all the directions. So with that, let's move to the next section, the last and the final section, and probably something a number of our audience will be waiting for as well. In terms of who do they want to engage with? How do they select a service partner? But before we share our thoughts on it, I'd like to inform the audience here of our complimentary briefing that we are offering. It's a readout of our soon to be published research, which is analysis of more than 20 service providers in this space. When I say service providers, I'm talking about system integrators. And please click on the message in the chat window here to request for a meeting, to request for a readout of that particular report. That report is soon to be published in a couple of weeks from now. We'll be happy to share our insights from that report, talk about what leading providers in that market is doing. It'll have a lot more details about what is a winning strategy for some of those providers when it comes to the mid-market organizations. Now, let's talk about the service partner ecosystem, Parul. So what in your observations, why do they engage? What do they expect from the service partners as they engage with them?
So, Alisha, we analyzed a number of parameters to come up with the ones that are relevant for the mid-market and what changes as compared to their larger counterparts. And 3 of these parameters are highly relevant for the mid-market segment. First is around the commercial competitiveness and flexibility. So the mid-market prefers to engage with providers that can provide them competitive pricing as well as innovative models. So for example, gain share models, outcome-based models. This helps them to bring that flexibility in the engagement that the middle market needs. Second is around the partnership ecosystem. So what we analyzed is that the middle market values a strong partnership ecosystem much more than their larger counterparts. It is one of the most important criteria that they look for in a service provider, and we'll talk about this more in the coming slides. And finally, the third thing that is really critical for a mid-market enterprise is the existing relationship with the provider. So what we have noticed is that the mid-market enterprises, they are inclined towards a long-term partnership approach, and they prefer to engage with incumbents rather than selecting a new player each time. They also stress on working with the same POCs and the same leaders that they have engaged with. And this is unlike what the large enterprises expect. For them, the same leaders or the same POCs do not matter much. So the commercial competitiveness and flexibility, strong existing relationship with the service provider, and a strong partnership ecosystem becomes really important. And if I dive a little bit deeper into the existing relationship with the providers, what we have seen is that the mid-market, and we can move to the next slide to showcase this point, the mid-market has a tendency to not change their provider mix. In fact, from the key issues survey, we realized that almost 80% of the mid-market enterprises said that they will not change their service provider mix in the coming year, which is a very big number as compared to only 60% of the large enterprises. And this also indicates that the renewals for the mid-market enterprises are also higher. In fact, the renewals for mid-market are almost double of what the large enterprises do. So the stickiness in the mid-market segment is quite high, given their drive for engaging with providers with whom they have strong relationships. So this is about the different parameters while choosing a service provider. Now, if we move to the partnership ecosystem, Sandeep, I'm curious to know how that works with the mid-market service segment.
Yeah. So, Parul, just about the role of the overall partner ecosystem in terms of supporting mid-market enterprises, right? So, one of the key factors that we have seen mid-market enterprises consider when selecting their service providers is, in fact, the strength of their partner ecosystem. So, in fact, the statistic is that about 85% of mid-market enterprises view a flexible and robust partner ecosystem at their service providers end as crucial because they often rely on these networks to get access to specialized technologies and solutions that they can't develop in-house. And it's also very important for us to understand how even the technology providers are evolving to meet the specific needs for mid-market enterprises. So I saw a question earlier in the chat around, and about an example for a highly differentiated product and services for a mid-market enterprises. So this will be something that will be useful to address that, right? So historically, from what we have seen, large technology providers have grouped mid-market enterprises with broader under a broad umbrella of broader small and mid-sized business initiatives, right? But now what we're witnessing is that there's a shift towards a more tailored initiatives specifically designed for the mid-market segment. So, for instance, while initiatives like Azure for SMBs and Salesforce for SMBs lay the groundwork by offering cloud solutions suitable for smaller businesses, the landscape is now evolving with more focused offerings. So we're actually beginning to see mid-market specific solutions like SAP Rise for mid-market enterprises and Cisco solutions for mid-market businesses. And these are some of the initiatives that have been crafted to meet the distinct needs of mid-market firms, providing scalable, cost-effective solutions that don't compromise on performance or security. But despite these advancements, there also remains a significant gap in the market, for fully dedicated mid-market specific playbooks and offerings. Many of these technology providers are only beginning to tailor their approaches to the mid-market, which again presents a tremendous opportunity for the service providers out there to step in and fill this gap, right? And by kind of developing solutions and services that cater specifically to the needs of mid-market enterprises, service providers can differentiate themselves from competitors who may still rely on more generic approaches. So yeah, that's a bit about the role of other partners in the broader partner ecosystem as a whole. Back to you, Alisha, to cover the remaining things.
Yeah. So, thank you for that, Sandeep. What we'd like to do is, it's been some time we have asked a question again to our audience. So let's ask the third and the final poll. As you think about as enterprise leaders in the mid-market organizations, what are your key expectations from sourcing partners as you think about achieving your business objectives? We've got some good responses. I'm waiting for more. Do you expect expertise in emerging technologies? When we say emerging technologies, we're talking about the likes, of course, Gen AI, we cannot avoid talking about digital twin, quantum computing, AI, Gen AI in the same breath. Do you expect more cost efficiency and flexibility? Do you expect a stronger collaboration and communication, which goes back to the point Parul was highlighting around the importance of relationship? The tailored solutions aligned to industry needs, or proven track record of similar projects, scalability and adaptability to business changes. We've got some good number of responses. We'll wait for another couple of seconds for as we see some more responses coming in. So beyond stronger collaboration and communication, Parul, what do you think is the most important aspect that enterprises expect in the current times?
I think the vote has gone to expertise in emerging technologies, Alisha, and I think this is one of the hygiene factors, if I consider it, that it's a given that the expertise is needed. And apart from that, I think as we talked about, the cost efficiency and flexibility is again one of the important parameters that have come out. So I think it completely aligns with what we are seeing and what our research also indicates. One important thing that I saw here was solutions aligned with the industry needs. And I think this is also one of the important criteria while choosing a service provider and expectation from a sourcing partner. So yeah.
All right. So let's move to the next and final projection for 2025. Parul, what do you have to say here?
Yes, so we believe that the mid-market will continue to value long-term partnerships with their technology providers as well as service providers. And they will also expect high-quality offerings. They will also expect flexibility, competitiveness in pricing with their service providers. So balancing this strong relationship and providing these cost flexibility and high-quality offerings is going to be the mantra for 2025. And this brings me to summarize the projections that we have counted as now. So recapitulating the three projections that we talked about during the webinar. First is around the sustained success of mid-market enterprises. And we strongly believe that the growth and the revenue increase that the mid-market had in 2024, it's going to persist in 2025 as well. And the mid-market is going to invest in innovation and make investments in the key growth area. Secondly, we believe that there will be an increasing leverage of consulting and external support in validating the strategy, in defining the strategy and executing that strategy for the mid-market. And finally, we believe that while choosing a sourcing partner and a service provider, mid-market will continue to give value to the long-term partnerships, strong relationships, and they will continue to value the pricing, cost, and flexibility that the sourcing providers provide to them. So this is the summary of the projections. What does it imply for the service providers? Over to you, Sandeep, to take us through that.
Yeah, so turning our attention to some of the implications that these trends have for service providers working with mid-market enterprises, right? So firstly, one of the most crucial things is about developing mid-market specific playbooks. So as we've seen throughout this discussion, mid-market enterprises have unique needs that differ both from smaller businesses as well as larger enterprises. So service providers that can offer tailored solutions crafted, specifically for mid-market challenges and opportunities will stand out in the market. And this means moving, beyond generic approaches and creating strategies that are directly aligned with the size, scale, and specific growth ambitions of mid-market firms. Secondly, service providers will also focus on offering solutions with tried, tested, and proven ROIs. So mid-market enterprises are increasingly selective with their investments, particularly in a challenging economic environment. They're looking for partners who can deliver tangible results with minimal risk. So service providers that can showcase a track record of successful implementations and measurable outcomes will be better positioned to win and retain business in this segment. Next is around the quality of service and relationships, which are also extremely crucial. So as we've seen, mid-market enterprises value service providers who not only sort of deliver on their promises, but also foster long-term partnerships that are built on trust and reliability. So this means consistently meeting or exceeding expectations and being responsive to the evolving needs of the client, right? And providers who can essentially demonstrate a commitment to understanding and supporting the client's strategic goals will likely see a stronger and more durable relationships that will lead to ongoing business. And finally, adopting a consulting first approach is essential, particularly when it comes to helping mid-market enterprises define a clear IT strategy. So as Parul was talking about previously, many mid-market firms face challenges in formulating and executing their digital transformation roadmaps. So service providers that take the time to understand, the client's business and offer strategic guidance and act as trusted advisors will differentiate themselves and build deeper and more valuable relationships. Yeah, so these are some of the implications we had for service providers. Alisha, back to you.
Sure, thanks, Sandeep, Parul. So we are now at the end of the discussion and the insights we wanted to share, but opening the floor for Q&A. Please feel free to post your questions in the Q&A tab here. Meanwhile, we'll answer some of the questions that we received during the registration, and there were quite a few very interesting questions which we'll pick up now. So one of the questions, Sandeep, Parul, we received was, what are the key expectations that enterprises have, the mid-market enterprises have from the GSIs, the global system integrators? Who'd like to take that up, shed some light on specifically from the GSIs, what are the main expectations?
I can take it up, Alisha. So throughout the webinar deck, we talked about the considerations that the mid-market has from the service providers. And I think those considerations that we talked about in terms of the flexibility, in terms of pricing, the different pricing models that could help the middle market, it is one of the important criteria. So GSIs, if they are able to provide opportunities like co-creation and models like gain share and outcome-based, that is one thing that can help GSIs to target this market. Secondly, it is important to form strong relationships. Maybe a dedicated focus on the middle market segment or a dedicated team will help in terms of targeting this particular segment because they value strong relationships a lot. Thirdly, what will help is having a consultative approach, because the mid market needs assistance in defining their strategy. So a consultative approach which can help them will be very good. And finally, talking about certain accelerators and adaptive platforms. So the middle market values these platforms and IP a lot. And if they are tailored to their particular industry in their particular niche, and if the GSIs can help them through that, I think these are some of the factors that can help GSIs to leverage this particular market and be successful here.
Yeah, perfect. That's helpful, Parul. And, I think some of the unique things that they really appreciate is, as you said, around the relationship, the account management, a local presence for the global reach. I think that's really what they expect from global system integrators. The other very interesting question we got was around the trends in mid-sized banks, more specifically. We talked about the different trends across different industries, and banking sector, of course, being one of the leading industry sectors in terms of digital adoption. Are there certain unique trends that we're observing when it comes to mid-sized banks? Sandeep, Parul, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so mid-market, mid-sized banks are exhibiting a blend of trends that align both with broader industry patterns and the specific needs of mid-sized firms, right? And one of the key trends is in terms of the modernization of core banking systems. So mid-sized banks are investing heavily in upgrading their legacy systems to remain competitive with larger banks, particularly in areas that directly impact customer experience. So this includes improving things like applications to offer seamless and personalized banking services, enhancing mobile banking apps, integrating AI-driven customer service tools. And these are some of those innovations that are crucial for mid-sized banks as they strive to compete with the scale and resource of much larger institutional banks, right? And apart, from that, there are definitely, AI focused investments also being made in areas like personalized banking services, mobile banking apps, AI-driven customer interaction that mirrors the broader trends that we've seen across the banking industry. Yeah, back to you, Alisha.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Sandeep. The other question I think you'll be best positioned to answer is also around generative AI. How is generative AI helping accelerate the mid-market transformation? We talked about where they are investing. Any other thoughts on where they are really using generative AI?
Yeah. So that's a very interesting question, right? And from the mid-market perspective, as we sort of have some of these conversations with senior leadership in the space around Gen AI, the long-term perspective that they often take is that for mid-market enterprises, which often operate with fewer resources than their larger counterparts, as we've seen before, Gen AI offers a way to level the playing field, and adopting a Gen AI-led model will be critical for their long-term growth in the future. And that is essentially why we are seeing a lot of mid-market firms, despite having limited budgets, despite there being a general POC fatigue in the Gen AI space, as we talked about earlier, they're still actively experimenting in the space and are heavily invested in a Gen AI-based strategy in the long term. And this is why it's also sort of been a focal point in terms of discussions with top-level executives, especially in the mid-market. So all in all, the answer is, yes, Gen AI is definitely helping accelerate middle market transformation. Maybe not as much as the hype warrants it today, but it is still being seen amongst mid-market enterprises as being extremely crucial to their long-term success.
Yeah. And we have another question from the audience here, examples of unique pricing model. And on the same line, we received another question during the registration, which was around how does as a service model really work? And again, another related question was around the mid-market enterprises are really very cost conscious and they just want to reduce the number of talent, the number of resources that are deployed. So how do you deal with that? I think all of this is somewhere or the other related. Ultimately, we cannot ignore the fact that mid-market enterprises are very cost conscious. They have a top line pressure and they have a massive bottom line pressure as well. They do not have the same kind of bargaining power. They get impacted by the economic challenges more severely because of the lack of resilience that they have. Now, what that really means is that reduction in talent by use of technology and automation, that's going to be one very important approach that will continue for them. But at the same time, enabling flexibility in pricing model is becoming one of the very important levers by which we are seeing some of the successful service providers engage in meaningfully large engagements with the mid-size organizations. And when we say flexibility, it's really about providing, say, outcome-based engagements or providing, smaller iterative steps, breaking the engagement into smaller iterative steps with very clear ROI and the business case built for the enterprise to be able to fund those initiatives, to be able to see that what kind of outcomes will the investment lead to. As far as the as a service model is concerned, generally, yes, that's a very interesting and a lucrative option, again, for a service provider to pitch to, or a technology provider to pitch to a mid-sized organization, because naturally it provides a lot more flexibility, it provides low cost based consumption, it enables better scalability, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, there are also a lot of challenges that as a provider you would face when you're engaging in an as a service model with an enterprise, with a mid and small size enterprise. Say, for example, the total cost of ownership or the total cost of usage of that technology generally tends to be higher in an as a service model as compared to any other kind of a model. The enterprise would see a lot more of vendor dependency and may not be very comfortable engaging in that model. At the same time, there are issues with regards to customization. Of course, you cannot customize an as a service model as much as you can on any on-premise model. And then issues related to security, compliances, all of those are there for any other model. So balancing out, the positives and the negatives of all of these models, I think it's very important to find a suitable option for the mid-market depending upon the kind of organization you're engaging with. It depends upon the kind of digital maturity that that organization and that industry generally has. Say, for example, retail and high tech are normally a lot more digitally mature, and they may be more receptive to an as a service model or any other kind of flexible engagement model. On the other hand, organizations which are typically in the business of very fluctuating demand and seasonal fluctuations, those might be the organizations who will be more willing to engage in an as a service model. So it's not a one size fits all. It really depends upon the kind of organization, the kind of industry, and the kind of factors that influence their business that will determine the kind of model. But having said that, when it comes to flexible models, outcome based model, fixed price model, project based model, all of those kind of models are something that we are witnessing very often now with the mid-size organizations as well. Of course, there's a long drawn cycle of adoption before we see a massive, scaled adoption of these models because of the maturity that enterprise needs to be at. Yeah, we are receiving a few more questions, but I'm conscious of the time. We're just left with 2 more minutes on the clock. So we'll cover some of the last few slides. We'll close the questions here, but we'll answer some of these questions. Thank you for those who are sharing the questions. We'll answer some of these as a follow-up after the session. If we go to the next few slides, I'd just like to quickly touch upon some of the existing research that you can access on our portal, some of the latest perspectives in the form of blogs by some of our leaders, a lot of content that you can access. And we receive certain questions requesting for this presentation. You'll be able to access this as well on the portal. With that, I would close the webinar. Thank you so much, everybody,